And I also am very worried about the fairness issue, that we're asking so few people to do so much for the rest of us for so long. You might have seen the recent New York Times story out, I think, just over the weekend that talked about 27% of people who have been on 3 or more tours having serious mental issues. We're asking too much of our people in arms. And yet, what's the alternative? To concede the fights in Iraq and Afghanistan? I know some people would be willing to concede the fight in Iraq, and my good friend Ken Duberstein talked about how the war is going sideways. I would actually take a position to his right on this issue and argue it's actually not going sideways. We've seen radical progress in Iraq in the last 12 months, and while we're nowhere near an acceptable or sustainable outcome, to give up now would be a major mistake for our country's security, in my judgment. So that leaves me with a conundrum. What do I do? I'm not volunteering, and they wouldn't take me at age 46 even if I did. A lot of you have other things you want to do with your lives. The draft is not realistic. Peter makes a very good case for the president, the next president, making a call for national service, and I agree with him, but I don't expect that to solve our manpower situation in its entirety. So I think that as a matter of fairness, and as a matter of making sure this force doesn't break under the continual strain of the Iraq and Afghanistan missions, we should do something like the following. And it does sound very questionable and almost mercenary-like to some people, but it's actually allowable by American law today. It's just not a policy we push very far. And the idea would be, in countries that have a fairly strong pro-American tendency and a very minimal al-Qaeda or related presence today, and I'm thinking of countries like, to take one example, the Philippines. Not a perfect example, and there are no perfect examples because there's a small Islamic terrorist organization even there. But in a country like that, I'm willing to say we should offer a path to citizenship for those willing to join our military. I would want to take the highest possible recruits I could. I would want to put them through the batteries of tests that Peter mentions we're giving waivers for and accepting lower standards for in the United States, and I'd want to insist on the highest standards. And even then, I wouldn't want to do this to a degree where foreign recruits became our predominant entry population. This would be at the level of 10 to 20,000 a year. It would have worked a lot better, by the way, 5 years ago. We waited too long. And this is one of the reasons why I think Secretary Rumsfeld, although I admire his way of thinking in some ways, I think will go down as a tragic Secretary of Defense. We needed to do this sort of thing 5 years ago, once we realized we were going to be stuck in Iraq for a while. And so that's why, to me, it's not a desirable policy. It's the least bad one I can think of, given where we are.